But
Awesome.
yeah, thank you so much for your time, man. It was obviously Kiana, right, who got us to connect with one another. And yeah, this is just a very simple, easy chat for us to go over what you guys are doing with
Cool.
Vi. I really like the direction. And I love being kind of like at the front of things.
Yep.
So some of the feedback I already shared, I did notice that competition's hot. So we'll just go through these things. Feel free to share your screen if there's anything you want to show. We'll just get into it. But maybe let's just start with who you are, background, and then what led to Vercept and Vi.
Awesome. Yeah. So obviously, Luca Weihs, I sort of grew up in the LA area. I was really super passionate about math. And so I ended up going to UC Berkeley, convinced I was going to be a math professor. Went through the entire program there, started getting more interested in computer science and did a minor in that. At the end of that, I was feeling that the combination for me of math and CS was going to be statistics. So I went to University of Washington for a PhD in stats. And there I just kept on getting more and more on the side of statistical machine learning. And obviously at the time, deep learning was taking off. I got really excited and passionate about agents, especially embodied agents. I ended up going to this institute called the Allen Institute for AI as a postdoc and sort of was there for a number of years. I was a postdoc, then became research scientist, then research manager. Eventually, I was like sort of leading the agentic embodied agent infrastructure team there. And it was at AI2 or the Allen Institute for AI where I met all of my great co-founders. So that's where Kiana initially came, and she sort of also was super passionate about robotics and agents and like long horizon task completion. Then there was Matt, who's obviously sort of the whiz kid of the group, who's like incredibly passionate about data, was on top of like, he really hears about all the AI advancements before anybody else does. And then
Right.
Ross came last, and obviously Ross is I forget, it's like the fifth or sixth most cited scientist in history, was sort of super instrumental in all of the object detection work, was a big part of the segment anything model, or SAM. And so we all worked together. In particular, we had this project Molmo. So it was, we were able to get extremely good multimodal vision model performance. Ross Gershing, yes, yeah. And so yeah, we got extremely good multimodal performance that was sort of competitive with frontier models. And on the same day that we released that, out came like one of the Llama V models, and we were sort of outperforming it across a whole bunch of benchmarks. And we did it with a ton of less data and like a really just small, passionate team. And I think we all just came to the conclusion that we're able to do a huge amount with a small team, and a lot of the extremely exciting work that's coming out of AI right now is within startups that are able to just move fast, test out, really try to find the places where people are struggling and where they need help. So we all sort of joined forces and started the company, and obviously are now building the computer interface of the future. But I think down the road, the big vision is to build or give humans as much agency as possible. So you should be able to produce and create as much on your computer or even outside of it as easily as you can, just by giving a sort of a natural language instruction. And yeah, that's where we are.
Love it, man. Fascinating. So, how many in total then is the team currently? Because
So we started with 4 co-founders plus an advisor. So another co-founder is he used to be the CEO at AI2, was really very helpful, especially giving us all the cool connections and this long history of work within AI. And so then we've slowly grown. So we added another 4 folks on top of that. And so we have Kuo Zhang, who's like an amazing research scientist and incredibly good at training models. And then, a few other folks. I won't name them all. Go to the website.
yeah,
Yeah.
fair, fair, fair,
Yeah.
fair. Okay. So, how did the name Vercept come to be?
Yeah, so there's the unofficial story and maybe the sort of official story. Maybe I'll start with the
Yep.
official one. And so the official one was that, ver means like seeing in Spanish. And we were thinking of like intercept and sort of these two things coming together. So you have the human and the agent that are both looking at the same screen, interacting with the environment and doing interesting things on the computer. So it's like the coming together of those. You look at a lot of names, and there are some names that have .coms, there are some names that don't have .coms, and you can back solve a bit from there. So I think it sounds cool. It's fun. We're able to play off the V a lot. So yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, nice. What I noticed already is that when I was speaking to even some members in my community about Vercept, I found myself confusing it with Vercel
Yeah.
because, right? That's
Yeah.
the only thing, right? I actually really love Vercept because when I first saw it, I was like, I just thought of Inception, right? Instantly.
Yeah.
And then when I was saying out loud, I was like saying Vercel, like, no, Vercept. So I
Yeah.
think it's it's good that you guys now have like you're using Vi as well.
Yeah. Although, yeah, with Vi, we came up with it. We like sort of doing all the branding and everything, and then somebody was like, oh, "There's also like V0 that's out there." So like, there's a lot of
Wow, you
inspiration.
guys just
Yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah, yeah. Nice.
yeah. No, yeah. I love the V. It's a great letter. So it's
Yes.
a lot of inspiration there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you have Vercept, and now you also have Vi. And are you? Would you call it like you guys' flagship agent, or would you describe it as something else?
Yeah, I think Flagship Agent, it would work. It's our first beta product for showing people what we think the interface for computers in the future will look like. We wanted to build something that felt extraordinary, very seamless, that lives with you on your computer, that's able to interface and move between all sorts of different applications.
So I think what I like doing with folks is just sharing our screens. How about you share your screen and let's have a look at Vi?
Happy to. Cool. Is this showing up?
Yep, can see it.
Okay.
Perfect.
Cool. So this is reminiscent, perhaps, of like
Where is
the
it?
spot. Yeah, where is it? Right? It's
This is
reminiscent
great.
of the spotlight search, and so we sort of envisioned it as being just a little assistant that pops up that sits on top of your screen and helps you do interesting things. And so you might ask something very simple like, "What is the time?" And then Vi will pop up and start watching your screen. It'll think for a bit, and then given what it's seen on your screen, it'll read it out to you and give you the response. So here we're seeing it is correctly saying, well, now it says 210, but at the time when I set this, it was 209. And so, of course, this is a incredibly simple query. And so we can start doing things that are a little bit more complex. And so maybe one interesting thing about Vi is that, of course, it's able to work with all the sort of apps that are on your computer together. And so I had thrown together one little like sort of a not a real task, but a task you might that uses multiple apps. So maybe we want like to take the top 3 most recent songs on my Spotify in the liked playlist and add them to this Google sheet. Or well, I misspelled sheet, but I expect it to be able to handle that. And so again, the sort of magic behind Vi is that it's able to act on your computer in exactly the same way that you act. So it saw this, and now it's going to first move to the Google Sheet and start adding some headers. And so as you can see, it sort of clicks in this A1 space, types in what it is going to extract eventually from Spotify. And so here's writing artist, tabs through the various cells in the way that you might, and then it'll continue on. The one thing that I think the biggest feedback that we've gotten so far is, hey, this is cool. It actually does the things that I wanted to do, but it's a bit slow. We knew that this is a limitation. And so it's something that we are absolutely actively working on. The beautiful thing about being in a startup is that you can push out updates like week to week very, very quickly. Let's just say there are some speed improvements coming down the pipeline very soon. To be able to make this useful in every aspect of your computer use, it just needs to be a lot faster. But then the other way that you can think about making other incarnations of this useful are allowing remote sessions. And that's also something that we
Ooh,
are
quick
playing
question.
around with.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So, is there a way where you could combine it with APIs? Because you're seeing how
Yep.
MCPs, right, are like
Absolutely. Yep.
popular. Because I'm sure there would be, I guess this is a perfect example of the use case for where vision is good, but then where you get faster access via MCPs, APIs,
Yep.
etc.
Yeah, no. So MCPs are like a pretty awesome new technology. I think the two main adjectives there are awesome and new. So there's like a ton of MCP servers coming out. We've like looked at them, thought about this a bit. And the major weakness there is, they're a bit of a struggle to get set up. Like the ecosystem isn't super well developed, and there's just a huge, incredibly long tail of sort of low quality MCP servers. So
Yeah,
I
you have
think
to
you
be careful.
can. Yeah, you have to be very careful, and like especially when you're using your own data on your own computer, it can be a bit
Yes.
scary to use sort of untrusted code. But I think even going beyond that, so if we had a few MCP servers that were able to do certain operations very fast, I think that is incredibly valuable. I think some people have the tendency to think that they can take that and solve the computer use task completely, and I think that's completely impossible. There are so many tasks that are especially across different applications or weird UIs or MCP servers that need to be updated so they have access to the latest APIs. Sort of general purpose computer use is the glue that I think can combine all of these different pieces together. we see it finished. It successfully added in these top 3 songs into the Google Sheet. We have a nice little fun video you can go through and look at what Vi has done. One feature that we also released very recently was the ability to sort of at a tab. So I pulled up one of your YouTube videos where you said I tested this MCP agent and it changed everything. And so you can ask a question, why did it change everything? And now we're able to, within Chrome and within Arc, add these different YouTube videos and whatnot into context. The model sort of pulls it in and is able to start asking questions. And obviously processing a video is a bit more complicated than processing bare text or bare images. So this will take a little bit. It has to think a bit about answering this question. And then you can probably be the best one to answer if it's actually correct.
Yeah. So when you're saying analyze, it's watching the video itself. Like, what is it actually doing to get the information?
Yeah, so it's pulling in the video and then analyzing it. It's looking at various different input sources. Like obviously there's the text within the video, like your spoken word, and all the
Yeah.
images and all that as well.
So yeah, I think this is also another one too, right? Like when you guys are absorbing the data, right?
Yep.
Data storage, as you said, like a lot of people, even with MCPs, people don't know where the data is going because AI is just doing things so much more quickly than
Yep.
humans are able to keep up with. So what's actually happening to the data in the background in terms, I mean, you don't have to go into too much detail,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, right. It's good.
Some of
Feed out
it's
after
the
this.
the, the so-called secret sauce and whatnot. But yeah, but I
Yeah,
think maybe I'm tell me if this is answering or getting at the question.
yeah.
I think a lot of people are concerned, especially with these types of computer use agents, where you are sort of having your public your sort of very, very private information
Yeah.
sort of being fed to these models. Obviously, none of these models can live on your machine. This just can't be local if you want this to be fast and effective. Use these relatively large, powerful models that we need to be able to visually process and plan and do all this. So we do have like all these images are being sent to our servers, but it's not too hard to set it up so that you both keep these things secure and you don't keep them around for too long, right? One of the big notions of security is you want to only keep around the data that you need and throw away all the data that you don't. And I think that becomes even more critical where there can be personal information that you really don't want. Maybe people are using this for work, which is a very clear potential use case for these types of agents. And there's going to be extremely private, confidential information. And so you want to be very careful about keeping that secure.
Okay. I guess in terms of the frontier research into all this, right?
Yep.
Because I understand why now it's like capturing videos, capturing images, but are we getting to the point where it can just see and do without needing to retain those pictures or videos?
Yeah, so I think you definitely need to see the images at least once, right? So I think that's definitely the case. There might be some fun things where you can pre-process it on somebody's local machine and do things there.
Yeah.
And then you need to keep it in context long enough so that the model, for many tasks, you only need the most recent image, right? So like I see
Mm,
the current image and I can just click around and do this, especially if you have a little bit more information about what's going on in the computer. But
yeah.
for a huge number of tasks, it is just really important for your model to be able to look back into the past and see the images that come maybe early on in a trajectory. So to be able to know, I don't want to have to go back and forth between these two back constantly to be able to enter that. I need to be able to see what I had before.
Interesting. I mean, this is why it's so fascinating, though, right?
Yeah.
Because the way this maps to our own human brains and memory, right? It also makes me think about, in terms of the way that we're designed, why forgetting can also be useful, right? Like why that has a
Yeah.
function, you
Absolutely.
know?
No, I mean, I think, yeah, as we see with these different models, right, they have longer and longer contexts, but the issue with them, I mean, and like it's completely remarkable if you look at, a Gemini or something like this, where you have millions of tokens in context, like the fact that they can fit this all and actually do operations on it is a credible feat of engineering. But the thing that I think is always so problematic with these LLM and VLM style models is that essentially to do anything, they need to look at everything in the past. And so it's incredibly inefficient, and having some way of forgetting the unimportant details or maybe remembering across different chats or tasks what were the key findings. It's what makes humans so amazing. And it is absolutely something that we need to work on and figure out for how to make this work for the agents that we have now.
Well, I noticed this even with ChatGPT because they also recently enabled the ability to reference all previous chats.
Yeah,
And then what I've noticed is that like I'll go, hey, based on I have to obviously set the conditions, like based off of our chats of the last month, right? Like, tell me a specific, inquiry. And I noticed that it was referencing something that we did talk about at the beginning of the month, but I had changed my mind about, right?
I
Earlier
see.
on,
Yeah,
and it was still referencing that old bit, but that's a
yeah,
specific thing that I wanted to forget, right?
yeah.
So this is the thing where, I mean, it's amazing we can do this stuff now, but that's a specific example I've noticed, right?
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
okay,
it's
cool.
it's understandably hard. It's just that there's so
Oh
much
yeah,
text, right? Like even for a human, sometimes you talk with somebody and you remember something slightly differently than they do, right?
exactly.
It's we I don't expect that from these magically powerful agents that seem to be able to
You
answer
should
any
just know
question.
me.
You should just know, right? Like, why don't you know me better than I know myself? It's frustrating, but I think it just goes to show how deeply embedded these things have become in our lives and how quickly they've advanced, right? Just I don't remember like 2 years ago we had ChatGPT, the initial launch, and it was great to play with, but not actually that useful. And now suddenly we have models that can work on your computer and do like lots of interesting tasks, and yeah, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Okay. So sorry.
Oh yes, yeah,
What
yeah.
say
So
more?
yeah, so you can
Yeah.
answer
Let's
whether or not
see.
this is yeah,
Hey, let's have a read. Yes. Yeah.
more or
Yeah.
less
That's
right.
spot on.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
sweet. That's great to hear. I think for YouTube creators, or I guess the way that we envision this potentially being
Mm.
used, one use case would be, lots of students have lectures that they watch. You could pull this sort of VI up on the side, and then as the lecture's going on, if you have questions or thoughts or things you want to add in, you could use VI as a resource to go through and seamlessly interact with the content. And the same thing is true. So like there are, PDFs. So attention is all you need is the sort of canonical example that everybody uses, right? You can now ask questions also of PDFs. So why is attention all you need? And it'll go off and do this. Oh, I forgot it's been more than 5 minutes, so the session is closed. And yeah, of course, this is still a beta product. If there are any sharp edges, I encourage any yourself or any viewers or whatever to tell
No,
us
it's
what's
still
wrong.
pretty cool, man. Like this is
Yeah,
actually amazing stuff.
yeah.
And yeah, it's good that you put the disclaimer anyways, right?
Anybody that uses this, please, it's sort of like self-driving in some ways. You should probably watch it until you get comfortable and know that it's able to do everything that you expect it to be able to do. So yeah, those were the sort of two big features that we had launched last week, the ability to reference these like tabs and whatnot. Soon around the corner will be lots of fun sort of speed improvements and other cool features. Let's just say I probably shouldn't say more than that. And yeah, that'll be soon.
Okay, perfect. So I noticed, I don't know who it was from your team, but there was a suggestion or tip to install Parallels, right? If
Yes,
you got
yep.
a Mac. And I did that. And I actually thought this was brilliant because this was actually part of my issue is that when I'm working on my computer and then Vi just takes over, I then can't do anything. So essentially, I wanted to be able to operate separately. So the Parallels solution was great, tested it out, and that way you can contain all of that information. So the only thing is that you have to install Parallels for that type of setup.
So I think this is
Yeah.
a really interesting and good point. Parallels is very powerful and it's a nice piece of software. I think the biggest
Yeah.
downside, downloading Parallels is a separate app. It's a bit
Yep.
annoying. The real
Yep.
annoying thing is that to be able to actually use the OS, you have to download a 30 gigabyte OS file and then it installs that. So it
Yeah.
starts to get a little bit away from that sort of magical feeling of let me just pull up a chat and suddenly be able to sort of see and do everything. But it does
Mm.
unlock so much because you can just let it go off in the background. And so there are obviously like some of our competitors are maybe more either web or sort of a focus in slightly different directions. So if you think of like an operator or whatnot, right? It's sitting from OpenAI and is
Yeah.
able to sort of use the web in really interesting ways and go off and do its own thing. And it's a nice ability to be able to do things remotely, but then you obviously lose access to everything that's on your computer. And there's just so much power to be able to use the services that you're signed into, to be able to use the apps that you want to use, to be able to do workflows in the way that you want them to be done with the apps that you expect to be using. It's a hard sell, I think, to sort of have an application that's just sitting only sort of on the web. And
Mm.
so, yeah, but I think the point is well heard that having these sort of remote or contained solutions like a Parallels is something that it's sort of the holy grail, right? If we could have a nice solution for this, and yeah, I guess I probably shouldn't say too much more, but these are things that we're thinking about for sure. You want to be able
Okay.
to have these agents working in the background.
I think that's the thing, right? Because what we're seeing now is that people are wanting to set up agents to essentially be working while we're not. And I still see there's that little, for a lot of folks who are not used to even just this type of workflow, it's even the setting up part of the process that I'm noticing for a lot of small business owners,
Yeah,
solopreneurs, those types, where even then they're still like, oh, it's still too much, to do.
yeah.
And it is wild when you think about it, right? Just how much AI is doing for us, but just for a lot of folks. who can't make that cognitive leap yet. They just want it to just do it for me, right? You should
Yes,
just
yeah.
know me and just do it
Yeah,
already.
just do it, right? Yeah.
Right?
No, absolutely. Absolutely. No, for sure. Yeah, awesome. I wanted to get this in here somewhere, but I think one really
Yep.
fun thing that I think it was even you that had mentioned was getting Vi to sort of watch you as you did a task.
Yes.
And then, yeah, you have it like sort of explain. It would probably be hard for me to do interesting things while we're talking, but that's another fun feature that I think I just wanted to highlight, that if you ask Vi to sort of watch your screen over 10 minutes or something like this, it can do so.
Yeah.
It'll check in every couple of seconds, and then it can summarize or even generate sort of future tasks that you could then use going forward.
Yeah. I think one thing that I had shared too was I got it to watch me for 5 minutes and then do a psychographic analysis
Yeah.
of me. Right. And I thought that was really interesting because just from 5 minutes of watching me work, it could already get a lot of information about me. Right. And I can only imagine with more context, more data, just how much it's able to figure out.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I definitely love the direction you guys are going with this. And I think for the future, for people who are installing Vi. So when you download, are you downloading Vi? Because Vercept is the company, right? And Vi is the
Vi's
software.
the
Right?
app. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think, I mean, so speed, I think, is the big one. I mean, fundamentally, speed and accuracy are like the two big drivers of what make like a value in a product, right? You need it to work quickly and do the things that you want it to do. I think maybe another interesting direction that people want to be able to not use this just in sort of a one-off fashion. There are certain repeated workflows and ways in which people interact with the computers, especially for work and whatnot,
Yeah.
that are sort of following the same set of steps like over and over and over again, right? Maybe in slightly different
Yeah.
contexts. And so having really nice ways of supporting those kind of workflows is something that we're absolutely like thinking about, and is a sort of a hotly requested feature on our our various
Yeah.
channels of feedback. We do have a Discord now if anybody wants to drop in and sort of give feedback or
Nice.
request a feature. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, no.
Noted.
Yeah.
I think last thing too would be when you're, I guess when Vi is watching. So I noticed this when I was in parallels, right? And I'm trying to do things separately. When Vi is watching, can okay, what's the question? What's the question? Because I remember I got to this point where I got stuck, but it
Yeah.
was okay. So yeah, I think I was having it watch me do some social media content activities, right?
Mm.
And there are obviously a lot of tools that are automating social media stuff.
Yep.
But okay, so this is actually a positive. So I noticed that with Vi, it can do something as simple as engaging for me on LinkedIn without
Yep.
needing an API integration. Have you guys been using it in this type of manner or seen others be using it in this type of manner? And what are the implications for companies like LinkedIn who do their best to try and vet API integrate? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think this is a
Yeah.
huge advantage of working on your computer and using the mouse and keyboard in the way that you do. You sort of
Yep.
subvert all of those. You get the APIs and the sort of UIs presented to you exactly as they want them presented to a human. Most
Yeah.
companies are trying to build their UIs for humans to be effective, and I see a parallel here between this and the humanoid space with robotics. With robots, the reason that people are trying to build humanoids is that the world is built for humanoids, like for humans to interact with it. And similarly, like websites and apps are built for humans to use them. And so we want to be able to interact with them in that way. And so I think even going beyond LinkedIn, I mean, obviously they want to lock it down and whatnot. There are even more complicated sort of industry or enterprise level applications, if you think like Salesforce or these types of things, which very strongly lock down the way that you're able to use them. And a general computer use agent is obviously able to leverage them in the way that any human would, and thus can produce sort of cross-app integrations that previously were completely impossible. It's like a fascinating multiplier. And I think the unique thing is there that like it really makes certain things possible that just were not possible before. There's no way to do this with an API because the companies presumably don't want to allow you to have that flexibility.
Super fascinating because so many services that rely on API access now just all of a sudden not needed. Final one is when I was thinking about this, right? Like to the extent of, say, if I start trusting Vi so much that I'm happy to keep it on in a parallels environment, right?
Yep.
And just have it continuously do work for me. What if it makes a mistake or does something that was unintended, but it's obviously doing it through my account and there's something that involves something illegal, right?
Yes.
How
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
you then differentiate from the person, right? Because signed in under my account, but it wasn't me.
Yep.
It was an
Yeah, no,
agent,
no, for
right?
sure. I mean, I think this is it's very like I made the allusion to self-driving before, right? And I think it in a way you have exactly some of the same regulatory and sort of safety problems that come up there. That if I'm not driving my car and it runs into somebody or crashes, am I at fault? Is the company at fault? Where do we draw the lines there,
Mm,
right? So I think very much our approach has to be measured in the same way. Obviously, it's a bit lower stakes than driving 60 miles an hour down the highway. But if you're dealing with personal information and people's applications and potentially illegal activities, you just have to be very safe and take things step by step. There's obviously a lot of work that can be done to sort of like the AI safety space, and there are lots of ways in which you can do verification and checking for unsafe steps. And then you could even imagine having more deep integrations to disallow certain operations or ask for checks every so often that are maybe a little bit less intrusive. So maybe I will ping you with a little notification on your main screen that'll say, hey, I'm about to do this. Is this really what you want me to do? Or something like this, where it's able to still act autonomously and continue on, but you avoid some of these dangers, or you at least confirm that it's doing exactly what you want it to do.
yeah, 100%. This kind of reminds me because I came out from the blockchain space, and it's really interesting because like I see how blockchain missed. I mean, even with Bitcoin, right? Like missed its ChatGPT moment
Yeah.
because all AI essentially are using tokens now, and
Yeah.
tokenization was what was being talked about,
Yep. Yep.
right, during the blockchain days. But I think this timestamping thing becomes even more interesting because, like, for example, behaviorally, I will use Google to sign in for almost all applications,
Yep.
right? So there's already a timestamp of when I'm registering for an app that way. If Google was attached to a blockchain based wallet and say I sign up to your agent using that, then that might be a way of, if Vi is making all of these actions that we're seeing,
Yep.
right? Then, and all of that is time stamped, but still connected to my wallet, that would be an easier way to be able to audit between, an agent based activity that is connected to
Interesting. Yeah.
me versus none. Because, and that's this whole identity thing, because right now all of our data has to be stored on external servers.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
there's timestamp against our own wallets, then that would be a way for us to get better.
I know it's an interesting way of like fingerprinting the behavior of different
Yes.
agents and like allowing yourself to have some like auditability into like who is doing what, and I guess
Correct.
assigning both yeah, I guess assigning blame in some sense, right? So
Yes.
you see
Yes.
this model that's doing something at this particular timestamp, and now you can look into a ledger and find out like, oh, okay, this is the agent that was owned by this person, and I know that they did it at this exact time. No, it's really interesting.
Correct.
So we have not played around with like blockchain or anything quite yet, but
Of
that's
course.
a
Yeah.
very interesting idea. Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to share with the viewers, once this goes live or published?
I think the main thing is like play with it, try to break it, give us all your feedback. We really want to make this as valuable and useful to everyone as it can be. I think we're very much committed to trying to like share this and make it democratize access to AI and make it like something that is empowering and useful to a lot of people. So one surprising, but I guess it shouldn't have been surprising use case that we have already seen is that some people with disabilities are using this to be able to use the computers. And it's just an amazing use case
Amazing.
that actually has the potential to change people's lives. And so we really want people to tell us what you need and we'll build it.
Love it. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much again,
Yeah.
Luca. And I'll be in touch with you after. And I look forward to playing around more with Vi as you guys roll
Awesome.
things out. All
Yeah.
right.
Thank you so much.
Have
It
a
was a
great rest
pleasure.
of your day.
Talk to you.
Likewise, man. Take care.